It drives me nuts. I'm going, you think that marketing, but I think that this is a myth that every marketer, not every, but most marketers and entrepreneurs have. I just need more customers.
Mm-hmm.
And more customers is great. Also, what if you never got another one?
Absolutely. And I think that's a great starting point. Welcome to Vox and Coin, marketing podcast, where we go through concepts, marketing, business development, and the general phony baloney of running a business.
Technical term.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or as I like to call it, phony hot dogs. But, you know.
And on this episode, we're talking about some of the biggest myths and concepts that we've heard from other businesses, CMOs, CFOs, you name it, we've heard it. We're going to talk about through some of those ideas and see if we can't figure out a couple gems.
I think that we'll find some.
So resuming that piece though, where we're talking about marketing's job is over when the customer is acquired.
Right.
We touched on this in another episode.
Yep.
Where we were talking about the customer journey post-purchase. And I think that leads to a bigger conversation, which is where does branding end? And I know the answer to that.
Sure. Yeah.
Which is it doesn't.
Right.
In fact, branding is in every granule of your company. One thing I'd love to talk more about sometime is interior branding, which is branding to your own employees. But we'll save that for another conversation.
Yeah.
But everything you do is branding, and so therefore marketing's purview is never over.
Yeah, I have a good friend named Ree Perez, wrote a brilliant book titled Your Brand Should Be Gay. I highly recommend it. He's a gay man. It works. In that, he talks about what is brand. Brand has become this non-word. And it really has. Like, brand has become a non-word because you have to have your personal brand. What does that mean? And I love his definition. His definition is, a brand is a desired experience. And I think that that's true. And so you're creating that desired experience all the time.
Every touch point interaction that they have with something that you produce, whether that's a paid for product or a non-paid for experience outside of that product, is brand.
In Malcolm Gladwell's book, David and Goliath, he talks about how there's this belief that bigger brands have an advantage, and they do in some ways, and yet they have a disadvantage, being that they're the Goliath, they're the ones that are going to move slower, and it's using the biblical parable or the biblical story to kind of like illuminate this idea around brand and how that works, and that as a small company, you actually have an advantage that other larger brands don't have. And one of the things that I've noticed on repeat is that the people that work in large corporations tend to not be that smart. I didn't say always. I tend to.
I mean, there is always a push for profitability. And one of the ways that businesses find that is by reducing salary components, which attracts a less experienced individual. Not that they're bad, but less experienced.
I've pretty much found that most there are very few CMOs of Fortune 500 companies that I've interacted with that I think are really good at what they do. Most of them are just really good at playing the politics elevation game of their career, and I mean it, it's a skill, but it's like the skill of being a good test taker. Doesn't mean that they understand the material. They're just really good at knocking out the other elements of multiple choice. I know that resonates from some of our combos. And so there's this idea that, they're a CMO at fill in the blank large company that everybody knows. They must know something. I promise you, a good marketing agency owner or owners know way more than 495 out of the 500 Fortune 500 CMOs.
So That's a great lead into another myth that I hear often, which is I have a company. I should be building my own internal marketing team.
Uh-huh. I've heard that one.
Now, I'm not saying don't build your own internal marketing team,
Yep.
but there are some serious advantages to either using an agency full stop
Yep.
or some sort of hybrid model where you have some professionals in-house and you outsource other activities.
Yeah, I'll just say as someone that's worked in I started out working in-house and then I went to the agency world later. I don't get the not hiring agency thing and trying to build an agency in-house because it creates a different set of problems that are, I would say, more problematic than hiring an agency. But what are your thoughts on it?
So one of the biggest contrasting elements for me of hiring an agency versus building an in-house team is that when you're an employee at a company, and this is true within an agency, right? They're a company. But when you're an employee, there's a minimum level of job security.
Yep.
And having that minimum level of job security can actually reduce output.
Yeah.
If you're not a motivated person.
Correct.
And not everybody's a motivated person. So when you have an agency
Yeah.
running your ads versus, say, an in-house person, an in-house person can much more comfortably say, that's good enough. Whereas an agency relies on that income. They've worked to gain you and your trust as a component of their reliable income. And so they're willing to go further, farther, and faster than most in-house teams.
Yep. On that note, too, every single time that I've had a client decide to build their own in-house team, I've helped that client build that team. I mean, like, here's who I'd hire, here's what it'd look like. They pay that in-house team at least 2 times more than they paid our agency fees. Because I think one of the things that happens that people don't get, they're like, oh, it's going to be cheaper. I'm like, well, you forget that the agency's actually subsidizing a lot of staff costs. So let's just take SEO for instance. If you were going to build an in-house team, you would need what, Jake? A technical person?
You're going to need a technical person. So that's somebody with web development experience in some form or fashion.
Do they need to be able to code?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Depends on your platform. You know, some platforms are easier than others. I'm looking at you, Shopify. But you're going to need some kind of technical person. You're going to need some kind of writer.
Now, hang on, time out. Why would I need a writer? I'm just playing devil's advocate here because I think it's important. Well, no, I think it's important. There's a lot of people that are listening to the podcast now and they're like, I'm thinking about doing this. Why would I need a writer if I've got a technical person? Why can't you just chat GPT it?
You can.
Okay.
I'm not going to fight that piece of this myth. You absolutely can. And the probability of success is dramatically reduced. Here's the problem where that comes in, because ChatGPT is beautiful. One of the analogies I like to use with SEO is that SEO is like a slot machine. If you have a writer, your chance of winning per poll, let's call it 3%. But the writer can only output, 8 pieces of content a month. That would be way too low, in my opinion, if that's all your copywriter can do, but we'll just play with that number. Versus an AI-enabled model that maybe only has a 1% chance of winning, but you can pull that lever 30 times. You can do the math, you get more opportunities. Here's the drawback. When it comes to SEO, if you pull the lever too many times, you can get noticed for pulling the lever too many times.
What does that mean? Okay, like, because again, you and I know what that means. What does that mean in practicality? Does that mean that if people throw up like a bunch of content, that Google's going to negatively score them, or Bing, or whoever, like whatever platform they're most interested in ranking highly on? Is it actually going to have a not just a diminishing return, a negative return?
Yes.
What? Okay. That means that the content that people are producing in their earnestness, because there's different demographics to listen to the podcast. So there are people that are like 10 million in scaling. They may have a technical person, but they don't have a technical writer. They're using ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
The writer is, right? Like the technical SEO person in-house might be using chat to help them write it. Then you've got people that are smaller that are like, hey man, I'm trying to hold together this $500,000, $1 million business with spit and bubble gum, a little bit of duct tape. And so I'm trying to do this myself. Obviously there are people that have $100 million plus business that are also listening. And they're like, well, that's why I hired an agency to take care of this for me, so I don't have to worry about that stuff. When it comes to this, though, what do you mean that you get found out, and how bad is it?
Google is not smart. It is a
That's the nicest thing you've said about Apple all day.
I should reframe that. Google is not clever.
There you go.
Okay. It's an algorithm. It's a mathematical equation. And so it's the most complex mathematical equation you've ever seen, unless you're, a rocket scientist or something like that. But it's extremely complex. And part of the way that it works is it operates within trend lines. So, for example, the New York Times is adding way more content than Joe's Landscaping on a regular basis. But the New York Times has built up to that with Google's algorithm. It knows to expect that from them because they are a news platform. And so it understands that content's going to come out at that pace. If Joe's Landscaping tomorrow said, I'm going to drop 20 pieces of content a day, all AI generated, and they go from 0 content to 20 overnight, Google's going to go, this does not follow their trend line. Something is up here. And then it's going to dig into what's up a bit deeper. It's going to find out what you're doing. And it might not be a manual action, but they do have anti-spam policies.
And they view that as spam.
It's a spam policy violation, according to algorithmic content, because they specifically state in Google Search Console T&Cs that you are not to create content designed to manipulate the search algorithm.
Wow.
Which is hilarious because that's what I do for a living.
Yeah.
But I do it well. I'm a card counter that doesn't get caught.
That's it. And I think that's part of the myth around, well, we'll just build our own agency. Okay.
So you've got your technical person. Let's go back in time.
Yeah.
Okay. You got a technical person. You've got a writer. Okay. You're probably going to need somebody that knows SEO. That is a strategist. Now, sometimes you can find these people bucketed together,
right,
as a human being. That's great. But
those are kind of unicorns, right? Like that's not something that you see every day.
Well, they're very different disciplines too.
Totally, right?
So finding somebody with all 3 disciplines in equal measure that are all valuable is going to be rare. So you're looking at at least 3 people in your SEO department to really make an impact from an SEO perspective.
So let's play that out just a little bit.
Okay.
So if I wanted to hire a copywriter that's not green, fresh out of college, this is their second job. They've been out there 2 to 5 years. We're their second gig. what-ish am I going to pay them in salary plus benefits? Range is fine.
Depends on how experienced they are in your field, right?
Okay.
That's one advantage that building a house team has, is that they only operate off of the knowledge of your field, whereas an agency, the writers are going to be more flexible. In some
Sure.
cases, you might get a specialist.
Yeah.
If the agency is a specialist agency, but let's say that they're not a specialist, you're going to be looking at a minimum of $50K a year.
Okay. So $50K a year and then benefits on top of that.
Sure.
So benefits, call it another $10K between taxes and health insurance and dental and PTO and all that jazz. Okay, so now we're at 60. Okay, so then you go to that technical person.
For sake of ease, let's call it the same.
Okay, it's called the same. Another 60 grand. And then what about that person that's really driving home the strategy, that has the deep insight? Again, these are ranges here.
Yeah. I think you're going to pay that person 6 figures.
Okay, so around 100 grand.
If you find someone who's hungry and maybe looking to move up in a ladder, you can bring them in at a lower amount. But let's say, for sake of argument, you're looking at 100.
Okay, so 3 people to run your SEO.
Yeah.
For 220 grand a year.
Yeah.
They're increasing your headcount.
Well, and that's not even talking about having a potential manager of your SEO division who their only job is to be an operations person.
Right. So let's say that it's a director of marketing, because you're just adding in to an already
Sure.
trying to build out the in-house agency.
Sure.
Right? So then you add that person. Director of marketing is like a boots on the ground. They're a player coach, as I like to say. Like,
Yep.
They should be somebody that could write, they could do design, they can creatively direct. Like, they're actually a more skilled human, typically, than a traditional chief marketing officer. Most people don't really understand that chief marketing officers, their role is to read reports, craft vision for the team, craft vision for where the brand's going, and they're not actually the people that are hands in the dirt doing the work. And if you hire somebody that has a lot of experience as a CMO, they typically have forgotten how to do the work.
Yeah, it's the different. Unfortunately, and this is true about a lot of career paths, the higher in the skill you go, the more of a politician you become.
That's it. That's
And
it.
politicians tend to lose their executable skills.
Yeah. So let's say somebody wanted to hire...
Let's keep it lean, though. 3-person model.
3-person model. If somebody wanted to hire us, just as an example, and I'm not trying to sell anybody on us, I'm just trying to give an idea of what the difference is. And we could do the same thing for like Neil Patel's agency too. But like if somebody was like, hey, Dave, Jake, I want to hire you guys to run my SEO, for the same kind of like masterful output, our monthly charge would be...
If I had a 3-person team dedicated to one client executing maximum output, you should be able to do more than our second highest tier package.
Okay.
Which is going to cross the line around $7,500 a month.
Okay. So 220 grand a month, 220 grand a year, compared to 90 grand a year. Differences are the agency that we own. We don't take PTO.
Nope.
We don't have dental.
Nope.
We don't have health.
Nope.
And we're constantly fighting for our life because we have that beautiful 30-day out.
Yep.
If they worked with Neil Patel's agency, because he's one of the biggest, most well-known SEO people on the planet, what do you think the same sort of package would be to work with him? Again, we're talking about one of the best, well-renowned SEO agencies in the world. If they worked with him, what do you think that same package would be?
I can't speak for Neil, but I have a good buddy who runs a similar size agency.
Brilliant. That'll work.
And I can tell you that their number comes in around the 15 to 18K a month mark.
Okay.
At the toppest tiers.
Okay. So let's rewind that. Okay. Let's call it 18K. So that'd be $216,000 a year. It's really close to the top, to what we're talking about, 60K, 60K, 100K for an in-house SEO department. By the way, that's not counting, you're going to need some software. You're going to need emails. Like, there's going to be some added cost to this too.
I mean, we're not even talking about training,
Sure. 90-day ramp-up time.
the ramp up time.
Yeah.
What if you have staff turnover,
Which you will.
which you will?
Right. Right.
Um,
Right. Yeah, this is getting to the point. This is why it doesn't make any sense to me. You know, I think it's a myth that building in-house agencies works and that it's more effective. And I think it's because, especially for smaller brands, and I'm curious what you think here, but I think that there's like a sense of I'm adding to the head count. The team size is growing. Look at our momentum. And it's not real.
I think if you have a great in-house generalist that can manage
Bingo.
outsourced teams,
Bingo.
or maybe even a small design person to go along
Sure.
with them, who really is intimate with your brand and the brand stylings and all of those elements, I think you could run a set or a 8-figure, 9-figure company.
Yeah.
With that's your in-house staff.
By the way, and I want to mention this because I think it's important, there are services that we do for ourselves. Obviously, we do SEO for ourselves. We run ads for ourselves. We do creative for ourselves. We do all those things for clients. That being said, we hire other agencies to do stuff for us that we don't have an expertise in. So we're not preaching something that we don't practice. We do this all the time. And so we also believe in consultants. We've hired a number of those. And so I think that this is one of those things where as we look at it and we're like, hey, you could work with a really good agency that gets really great results for about $90K in juxtaposition to $220 a year. You could work with some of the most renowned SEO agencies on the planet for essentially the same price as in-house. The difference is you don't have to keep them around forever.
If they disappoint you, it's a lot easier than firing people and restaffing it up and training them back, because you're going to walk into an agency day one. They're going to know exactly what they need to do for your system, for what you do. There's going to be no ramp up time.
Yeah. All right. I got another myth.
Yeah.
Okay. Other myth is your agency or marketing department should run and make your business go, man. I've had too many entrepreneurs and small business owners look to an agency or even a marketing consultant or any marketing team in-house even, and they're like, your job is to make me money, and if I don't make any money, it's your fault. And there's that whole like, yeah, but your product's really bad. There was a quick story that illuminates this idea. There was a client that we had, huge brand name, massive. They were making a product, and I'm not even going to tell you what category it was in. It was a physical, tangible product. Okay, so we're doing e-com, which we were great at. And when I got my hands on the product, I immediately went, oh no, because their original positioning was not high-end, but
Consumer grade luxury.
yeah, this is going to be nice. A lot of people would spend, like, their low-ticket items that were accessible were $45.
Okay.
Their average items were like 85.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And when I got them, they started to tell me how much they cost to have produced. It was astonishingly low. And it was so cheaply made. Like, I engaged with each of the products, lots of SKUs. I was flabbergasted, to say the least. My wife literally said to me, babe, if you can sell this, you are the best marketer in the world. And so I bring that up whenever it talks, when it's like, and I'm sure you've had this too, Jake, my business should succeed because I created it. And if it doesn't, it's your fault. What has your experience been like with that sort of mentality, that myth?
Marketing is not the spiker, we're the setter.
Mm.
If you're a volleyball fan.
Yeah.
That was a volleyball reference, because I know sports.
I'm a volleyball fan once every 4 years.
Amen. But in all seriousness, I really think there are certain situations where marketing can get the job done,
Totally.
especially in the e-commerce space.
Totally.
If your marketing is in the right spot, selling is easy or non-existent. That being said, marketing's job is to create the opportunity for a sale. That is all we can promise.
Yeah, and I also think one of the things that is, we were hanging out last night, drinking some scotch like we do, and I was talking about selling a children's enrichment program in 2008, 2009. It was not for lack of fervor. It was really, really, really hard to sell a product that people didn't have to have. They would like to have, but they didn't have to have in order to keep going in a downturned economy.
There's a perfect example of this.
Oh,
just happened recently.
Oh, great. I'm about it.
The AI pin. Are you familiar with this product?
The AI pen. I don't know about this one.
So, really cool tech, okay, from a conceptual perspective. It was a magnetic lapel pin that you would pin to your shirt.
Okay.
And it had a front-facing camera on it.
Okay.
And it was an always-on AI assistant device.
Cool.
And they did a ton of tech demos and videos, which...
What was the use case for it? Like just that you could post, I'm eating lunch without having to worry about it, or what was the idea?
No, it would like if you were standing in front of a car, you could tell it, "Hey, what car is this? What type of car is this?
Okay.
What's
all right.
the paint color of this car?
Whoa, right on.
Hey, this looks really cool. Buy it for me from Amazon."
Wow. Okay.
And then also, one of the coolest features was if you held your hand up, it could project the display text into your hand. So if you got a text message, you didn't want it to read it out loud, you could hold your hand up and it would okay. And they poured millions, if not a billion, into the marketing of this product.
Good Lord.
It is one of the biggest tech fails in history because, and I know the exact moment that it failed.
Okay.
If you're a tech person or you enjoy technology, there is a YouTuber. He's like the tech guy. Like whenever I go on YouTube and I'm looking at a new piece of tech.
Yeah.
But he's awesome. He's been doing this for since the inception of YouTube, he's been reviewing products.
Okay.
He is the guy. And the best thing about him is he has built a authority and a trust. He reviews things extremely fairly.
Sure.
And they, of course, said, this is going to be great marketing for us. Let's send him the pin. And he got his hands on it, and he was not kind to it. Wow. Because it was an unfinished product. Conceptually brilliant.
Yeah.
But the product was just not there. And the other kicker to it was that it was cellular enabled to work.
Sure.
Responses could take 40 seconds.
Whoa. Yeah, because it's going to You're
not going to show any of that in the tech demo.
No, right.
But that's where this guy, and his video came out, and that entire company is gone now.
Wow. Yep.
Even though they spent millions, if not a billion, on marketing this product.
I also think that there's this element too of you have to understand what other marketing has been poured into a space. So I was telling you about a success story yesterday. I picked you up at the airport, brought you home, brought you to our house, and it was a cleaning product. It was a cleaning product that is non-toxic. Now, here's what most people don't think about the big cleaning companies have spent literally hundreds of billions, tens of billions of dollars over the past 100+ years telling us that if it's not toxic, it's not killing the bad bacteria. Right? And you're going up against household name brands they really do spend well into the billions every year in advertising.
Have they heard of Brass?
Yeah. And so when we're advertising this product creatively, we had to inform people that the toxicity or lack thereof of this product that was people, pet, and planet safe, the 3 Ps, was something that was actually going to kill the bacteria in their home and was not toxic to them.
Mm-hmm.
So instead of, this is an example of marketing doesn't do everything. We told the company, you need to run toxicity tests. We're going to publish them online. That was marketing. To run the tests was $100,000. They ran 3 of them, $300,000 on the tests, so that we could show they used pig lungs, right? And they tested the toxicity of this for 24 hours, like spraying it into the pig lungs for 24 hours. What does it do to the tissue? No, it's kind of weird, but just stick with. And it did nothing. It had a net zero effect, which if you use any other cleaning product, it would have deteriorated the pig lungs very quickly. So we were able to say that, and people really bought into it. And they are one of my best case studies, really went from 0 to 5 million in the first 9 months because we were able to do some creative things with some ad placements that really worked. That being said, that wasn't the only thing, right? The people that created this product were very connected. They had spent 35 years in the cleaning product industry. They'd been working on this particular product or products for the past 20 years. Like they were building these things. So I think that's a thing that often is a myth, is that, well, the agency or the marketing department or the sales team, they're going to save me. No, they're not going to save you. If you have a terrible product, if you don't have a good service, no amount of good marketing will help you. In fact, to your point about the AI pens, it may lead to your demise faster.
Yep, absolutely. You have to have something worth buying.
That's crazy. What a weird thing. Okay, what's another myth that you've seen?
Another myth that I've seen. This one is going to get me in trouble.
Oh, God, I'm so excited.
This one's going to get me in trouble.
Yes.
Your clients don't read everything on your website.
Is that a controversial take?
Sorry. The myth would be every single piece of content on my site is getting read. And the answer is no, it's not.
Yeah.
In fact, there are numerous studies. And if you want to go look it up, all you need to do is type in the F test.
The F test.
Yep. The F test.
Like the letter F or
the
E?
letter F.
Okay.
The F test.
Okay, the F test. What's the F test for people that don't know?
So the F test is this. They studied people's eyeballs to see how they read things. And they used a bunch of different mediums to test. It wasn't just websites.
Capital F, or is it a lowercase f?
It is a capital F.
Okay.
Does that matter?
Well, it's a different shape.
Fair enough. And what they found...
Serif or sans serif?
I will hurt you.
What they found on the F test, yeah.
Wingdings. Jeez. All right, we're going to have a whole conversation about fonts. I'm going to just drag you into that.
I know. It's going to be
that pile.
Yeah.
You font unbeliever. Anyways, the F test, they analyze people's eyeballs and how they read things. And here's what they found. 80% of the content on your page never actually gets read.
Okay, when you say your page, Do you mean the home page? Do you mean the page they land on, like if you drive them directly to a product page? Do you mean 80% of your website? Like, what does that mean?
80% of the text on your page is not consumed consciously. So what does this look like? Why is it the F test? What they found out is that people skim. They skim everything, and they skim in a hierarchy. And that hierarchy just happens to match the shape of a capital sans serif letter F.
Thank you for the clarification.
So what the vast majority of humans do is they start in the upper left-hand corner, asterisk. If you're in a country that doesn't use English and maybe reads in a different direction, this won't apply to you as much, but similar. They're going to start in the upper left corner, and they're going to go immediately to the right. Think of a web page. What's immediately to the right of the upper left-hand corner? Typically your menu, your navigational menu. Then they're not going to wander about. They're going to return to the left side of the page and go down until they encounter the next outstanding element of text. Then they're going to go to the right, again, all the way across the page. Then they're going to return to the left-hand side and continue this process until they're bored.
Are you saying that 20% of a page's content produces more than 80% of its results?
Yes.
That's weird that the 80-20 rule shows up again.
There it is. So, what you need to know is that unless the text is visually breaking the flow of the page, the likelihood of it being read is about 20%.
So people freak out about their copy.
All the time.
I mean, we're redoing the agency's website right now.
Absolutely.
I'm reviewing the copy every day. It's tedious. It's worth doing.
Absolutely.
And what you're saying is I could probably just find like a few really good pieces, be happy with some headlines, and let the other copy kind of be SEO fodder? Like, how do you, if you were writing copy with what you're just throwing out, which I love, what would your approach be to writing web copy then?
Approach to web copy, my opinion. This is my opinion.
It's fact. Quit being, don't do that. Don't do that. It's just my opinion. Okay, how many of the people here have 100,000 followers on TikTok because they're marketing content? Stop it. Don't sell yourself short. You're a tremendous slouch. Let's get back to the topic at hand.
So, my strongly enabled opinion is that you need to break your text into three hierarchies.
Okay.
Your three hierarchies are this: attention-grabbing statements.
Got it.
Minimal detail follow-up.
Okay.
Call to actions.
Great.
That's it. On any page meant to drive them towards a call to action, that is your hierarchy. So everything falls into one of those three buckets. If you are writing some kind of content that is meant to be read, for example, if you're writing a quality blog post that's informational, educational, your reading is going to happen. Not as much as you think. They're probably still going to read the headers. And then if any of those do grab their attention, maybe they'll read the paragraph. Typically, they're going to skim it and probably read the last sentence.
Okay.
But on any of your core web pages, your service pages, your product pages, your About Us page, unless you're visually breaking the flow of the page, the likelihood of them reading it is 20%.
Wild. It's bananas.
So just remember, nail your headlines.
That's it.
And that's a whole can of worms. It's going to be another episode when we talk about messaging, because all y'all talk way too much about your features and not nearly enough about what they do for the person who uses those features.
And no one cares about the features until you're already on the page to go buy the product and you're looking for the additional details. And at that point, they're in the final stages of making a decision. Come on.
One of my favorite marketers, he said this, and I'll never forget this line because I just think it's so dang true. You don't buy a drill because you want to drill. You buy a drill because you want a hole.
Yeah.
Don't sell them the drill. Tell them how awesome the hole's going to be.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it's that whole thing where, and you and I both are big fans of Mad Men. One of my favorite episodes, season 1, episode 13, the carousel, where look, dude, I am a nerd, okay, and you can throw shade with your faces all day long, bro, but just this is who I am, okay? Quit judging me for what I like. Well, I see that it's written all over your face. You're like, how the hell did you do that? Look, I've got it. It's just like in me. You know what I mean? Like,
it's all right. We all have those things.
Shut up, dude. Go eat a hot dog. So, anyways,
every episode. That's gonna be in every episode.
There's this moment where Don Draper, main character, is talking with Harry Crane. Harry Crane's been kicked out by his wife. He's in the office in his underwear. He just set his wastebasket on fire because he dropped a cigarette in there. And Don calls him in. Don's a little bit drunk, and he's like looking at this slide projector that Polaroid brought in. This is a real product that they brought in for this, which they did a lot. Genius move by Matthew Weiner. I mean, just if you haven't watched the show and you're like, I know I should go watch it, everybody's talking, just go watch it. Okay, anyways, in this scene, Don looks at Harry and he goes, what is the benefit of that product? Because he's not looking for features. They all know what the features are. They're very aware that this is like, the wheel is what Polaroid want to call it. And Don starts to have this conversation with Harry, and Harry's like, I had this experience. This actually is how, just for insider baseball, this is actually how Jake and I come up with some good ideas, is that we're having a conversation about something totally unrelated, and then it spurs this on. But Don's having this conversation with Harry, and Harry said, when I was a student...
Which episode was that again?
13, season 1. You're welcome. Would you like to know other episodes that I really love? So, he's like, I saw these these cave paintings in Europe when I was in college, and there were these little tiny hands that were on the wall, and it was like the signature of the artist was their handprint, and their hands were so small in comparison to our hand size today, and it was like they were reaching through the wall to me. And Don's like, nostalgia. That's the benefit. The benefit of the slide deck is not that we get to show each other pictures, and this is a nice, convenient way to display those. Pre-iPhone, right, guys? So it was, hey, the benefit is it's like a time machine. It allows us to move forward and backward, back to the place where we feel loved and seen by those people that we love. Those moments gives me chills just giving it now, and I didn't even do it. And I think that's at the end of the day, when you write copy, you want to write to the benefit. What do the people get when they engage with your product or service? What's the result they're going to see? You sell the result, you market the result. The features are for later on. Those are great. That's after they're already in.
Yeah. We could do a whole episode on messaging. But I completely agree. And just know that when you're doing your copy, your headlines are really carrying all the weight. And FYI, that's pretty true about your ads too.
God bless. Yeah, I see, for so long I used to see meta ads that were like, gurus were like, write a wall of text for your Facebook ads. And I was like, just write a really clever headline. and the other copy, like, go have fun.
Yep.
Headlines crush. That's it.
Hopefully we covered some good myths today. I think we did.
Yeah. Is there another myth that you like feel out there that you're like, yeah, that is one that I get all the time, or are those like the big four for you?
I have more nuanced and smaller myths that I get all the time.
Let's do rapid fire.
Rapid
Small myths, just like hit them back and forth. Let's see how many we can do.
My hosting doesn't matter.
Ooh, why? My hosting doesn't matter. What do you mean it matters?
Look, your loading speed not only matters for people trying to visit your website, but it also matters for how you rank in organic search. And if you're running ads to a slow site, guess what? You're just lighting your money on fire. So your hosting does matter. So if you're paying $3.95 a month to GoDaddy for a shared hosting server with 20 other websites on it, and who knows what's going on their websites today, but you're all sharing the... Imagine if it was your phone and you had 20 people all trying to use apps on the same phone at the same time. It's the same equivalency. It's a computer running your website. So if you have 20 on there at once, or just one, it's going to change how fast that thing goes. And so hosting matters more than just my site loads fast.
One that I get is that why don't you just follow the recommendations from the digital ad platform?
No.
And I have to explain to people that Meta and Google, Reddit, Pinterest, Bing, doesn't matter, every single ad platform, they want you to be just successful enough that you keep coming back to spend more money, but not so successful that you don't spend more money with them to get more results. They're not your friend. They're a business. And so one of the reasons why we don't take every suggestion that an ad platform gives us digitally is that they're not always looking out for the best interests of us or our clients, and we have to make the decision there to do something totally different.
That's a good one. If you're just auto applying all of Google Ads recommendations, I feel bad for you.
I know why you're getting crushed.
Another fantastic one is I'm posting 2 to 3 times a week and my social isn't growing. Social must not work.
Yeah.
I posted 2 videos a day every day for 2 months before I had any sort of traction.
Yeah.
And the reality is that what you're posting, nobody wants.
Yeah.
90% of the time, that's the problem. And so I'll give you a fix action on this one. It's pretty simple. Post 2 to 5 times a day for 90 days and don't look at a single result. At the end of that period, go see what stood above the rest. Keep doing that.
That's way longer than a lot of other people would say, and that's a lot more videos than most people would say. A lot of people would say 2 to 3 times a day for the first 30 days. Get to 90 or 100 posts. Why so many posts? Why so long? I agree with you. I'm curious if you would share your rationale with the audience, though.
Because you have to get good at making content. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, and we're doing that right now. Like our 100th episode is going to be more fun, more engaging, more enjoyable than this one.
The reality is, if you took that approach, 2 to 3 videos a day for 30 days, and applied it to anything else with a skill-based component, you would be crap at that thing. So why do you think that's all it takes to break on social media? If you practiced 35 minutes a day, every day for 30 days of the guitar, of painting, of chess, do you think in 30 days you're going to be, Dua Lipa? No.
Right.
who has created all three of those. No, I'm just kidding. I don't know. I don't know if she can actually play guitar.
Okay, got another one. I just need more customers. Yeah, I mean, like I had a former client who had, this is not an exaggeration, they had 32,000 customers over the past 5 years, and this client kept wanting more new customers, and I finally had to have a come to Jesus moment where I was like, look, new customers are great. We're helping you get new customers every month. Period, full stop. If we're not getting returning customers, that tells us that we have a bigger problem. So you're wanting to see 50 purchases a day. It's a growing business. I think that's a great number. I think that 50 orders a day, great number. You're rocking like 15, 20, and 3 of those are returning. There's a bigger problem here. You cannot overcome a lack of, I mean, this has been a conversation throughout this podcast and other ones. You can't overcome a lackluster product or a lackluster follow-up or a mediocre attempt to keep customers engaged and build a business. If you just had those 32,000 people purchase from you every month for a year, you'd blow it out. Let's do it even one better. If you had 10% of those customers purchase every month for a year, they'd actually double the number that they're trying to hit. Just 10% once a month, every month for a year. They'd more than double their desired outcome. And so instead of going, we just need to get new customers, it's like, how do we re-engage the customers who've already purchased from us? What makes them tick? What would bring them back? Where did we mess up? Can we make amends? Because 32,000, I mean, just being real, if I had 32,000 people that had purchased from me and I was only seeing a small number of my total purchases come from previous buyers, I would be deeply disturbed and concerned that I didn't have a great product.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's way more fun. I'll just tell you from my own experience. I know you've had this experience too, Jake. It's way more fun when you do have a great product or service.
Totally.
Someone leaves you for an asinine reason,
mm-hmm.
and then they come back 6 months later and they go, hey, so I made a mistake. And of course, at that point, I go, I hear you, and I'm sorry that you left. And I only do this if this legit happens. So I'm not saying that I just do this and people leave. A lot of times we increase our prices, like once a year, we increase our prices. And so sometimes they'll come back and I'm like, hey, prices have gone up.
Mm-hmm.
So you could have been grandfathered in and now it's 10% more. But
absolutely,
happy to have you back.
Oh, man. I got one more.
Okay, great. I love it.
And this is more targeted for younger brands, but look, man, all I need is a logo. No. My sweet summer child.
All I need is a logo.
A brand a logo does not make.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, sometimes just having a logo is worse than nothing.
Absolutely.
Your brand is an experience. It is a feeling. It is a vibe. It is the way I think of you in my heart. And you cannot do that with just a logo. It's going to be how you talk about things, why you talk about things. Sure, it's going to be colors and fonts and layouts. And do we round the corners or square the corner? These are all subtle little elements that distinguish you, much like a human being, to the marketplace at large. Do you have a beard? Do you not have a beard? Right? Humans come in all shapes and sizes, but you remember certain ones over others. It's the same deal. And so if you just want a logo, you don't want a brand. You just want something that you can put on your product that makes you feel like a company.
And there you go. Another great episode.
Oof, we ended dark.
Woo.
Anyways, hopefully we had your myth busted here on Vox and Coin tonight. If we didn't, let us know. We'll tackle your myth on another episode for sure. Just send it in.
There's lots of content that we can cover. If you're finding any aid from our show, please give us a subscription on your favorite channel. Give us a shout out on social media. Jake the Wizard on TikTok and Instagram. You can follow me on those platforms as well, @RealDVal. Our agency is called Fitch. We'd love to chat with you about working together. You can find links in our social media bios. Until then, man.
Stay classy.